Perfect Sun by That One Guy with That One Ship. Read by Munchin on Muchiko. Chapter 8. Thorn Burn. What is it? The president sounded bitchy, as usual.
Oh, hey, Miss Prez. You sound good this morning.
Guzma lied. What is it? Lusamine repeated. Don't waste my time with courtesy calls. Guzma shut his eyes. You try to give a gal a compliment.
So, I found your kids. They were hanging out by that kid's...
Stop! Guzma jumped. She'd never been so loud over the phone before. He held it a little more distant from his ear than he may usually have done. Give me one moment, she said, and there was a pause. What?
They were hanging out by that one kid's house in Hau'oli, so I beat that kid's mom like you asked me.
Guzma paused, waiting for some sort of condemnation, but Lusamine was silent.
And I found them.
Well, bring them already on it, Miss Guzma began, unsure of how to explain he'd lost them. He didn't think that Gladion would have had the guts to actually go against him, but he'd let his guard down. Lusamine hung up. Guzma blinked. That must have been a mistake. He dialed again. Lusamine picked up.
Miss Prez, if I could...
Lusamine hung up again. Guzma called again. This time, the call didn't go through. He spat on the floor in anger. The kid, Gladion, had somehow got a hit on him when he wasn't looking. It had been a big hit, too, with a rock or something, because it hurt real bad. Guzma's head still rung with the impact. Since Gladion and Lillie escaped, he'd spent the night chasing leads around Melamela Island, trying to find them again. They were slippery. Guzma turned on his heel dramatically towards the other skull grunts. They had regrouped in Hau'oli City and were stood around the marina. The waves crashed against the dock, and Guzma looked out to paradise in the dawning light.
Form up, numbskulls. We're going to search every inch of this island for those two.
Gladion's hands were still shaking, his knuckles still red. After the first hit, Gladion had gone to town on Guzma for all the thinly veiled threats of violence Guzma had pushed towards him since he became Team Skull's enforcer. It was liberating to strike back, and it became all the more liberating for the 3 hits he'd managed while imagining it was Lusamine he was punching instead of Guzma. Lillie had avoided speaking to him, and he couldn't blame her. They were hiding out in the seaward cave, huddled in a corner of the dripping, dark tunnels. Gladion had a plan now, but it was a rushed one. Kala'i Bay was a popular place for fishermen, and if one came by who was kindly enough to give them a lift, he'd take that all the way to anywhere that wasn't here. From there, he'd battle for money until Lillie could get a job to help, and from there they could build new lives, far away from Alola. Gladion hoped that Team Skull hadn't found Type Null or Nebby. The 2 Pokemon were like the other halves of both his sister and himself. Maybe they could loop back to pick them up. If Null was recaptured, it'd be put back into stasis indefinitely. And if Nebby was captured, it'd be tortured until it opened the Ultra Wormhole. The Pokemon were safe, so long as they were with Cookie. Gladion had been skimming pebbles across the surface of one of the underground reservoirs. He had a small stack beside him and was reaching the bottom when Lillie spoke. Where do you think we should go? Skim. 3 bounces. Gladion thought for a moment. His eyes searched for the answer in the darkness of the cave.
I'd say Unova, the Unovian dream and all that. It's close, too.
Gladion had Unova in mind as a clear goal, but he'd take the wasteland of Ori over Alola right now. It was ironic that he should want to escape the arguably most idyllic region and would take the region known for its apocalyptic landscape over it. Unova's dangerous, Lillie said, as if that shut down all argument. Gladion knew she was just afraid.
Listen to me, Gladion said, energetically shaking his hands to try and inspire some confidence in her. Think about it. I have money from Team Skull. We can go anywhere once we've made it out of here. Become trainers, work hard, make a new life for ourselves.
He noticed he was draining his own confidence instead. Lillie didn't seem changed at all by the speech. Gladion, we should just go back. Make sure she doesn't hurt anyone else.
What? Gladion said, his voice sharp. No, Lillie, she will kill us. She will kill us and leave us for that damn Sharpendo.
Gladion threw another pebble. It splashed right into the water. No bounces. It only increased his anger.
How is dead?
Lillie waved her hand as if swatting flies. No, don't talk about... Gladion grabbed her wrist and spoke to her face.
How is dead? Sun is dead, and...
Lillie put a free hand over her ear and pulled the other arm free of Gladion's grip to cover them both. She screamed, screwing her eyes shut. The scream became sobbing. Gladion wished he hadn't been so harsh. The adrenaline hadn't left him yet. Why? Why did you get them to come after me? I wasn't worth this. Lillie always seemed to put herself down. Gladion wished she'd stop, but it was her mother's behavior that had conditioned them into thinking themselves as little more than trash.
Lillie,
how? And Sun, I'm not worth...
Lillie
again swatted away his responses. How was the kindest person I ever knew? He would have never wanted to hurt a single person. He was always smiling. Lillie continued crying through the words.
Lillie.
And Sun...
She couldn't finish the sentence.
Gladion didn't comfort her. He felt he'd only make it worse.
Come on, let's go to the bay.
Lillie refused to move. She couldn't. So Gladion didn't move. I guess we're staying. So you lost them. It was the next day, and Lusamine had called Guzma first thing. He was nothing but a disappointing mess. Still, his blunders had left her with a little more time to be with Sun, and Sun alone. She wasn't anywhere near as angry as she thought she'd be. Her children were disobedient and disgusting creatures, unlike Sun. Why should she hurry to get them back? Lusamine did want some sort of outlet for her violent and less ethical urges, but they hadn't reared their head in a good while. Sun was safe.
Yeah, Guzma mumbled, but I'm working on finding him. I swear, Miss Prez, I'll find him eventually.
There's no rush, Guzma.
Huh?
Lusamine hung up with a slight smirk.
Mother?
The smirk was ripped away in a nanosecond, and the president of the Adric Foundation leaned away from the source of the sound violently in a sort of jolt. She shrieked in terror as she moved, turning to face the speaker. Oh, Arceus! Sun! Sun hadn't reacted to her fear at all. Stood still with a big, silly smile.
Good morning.
Sun, when did you get in here? Lusamine steadied herself, collecting her emotions and bleeding out the panic from her system. Sun, you can't just...
Last night, Sun told her, moving to be closer to her.
Lusamine put her hand to warn him away.
What's wrong?
His smile had instantly vanished the moment she did so. Sun, you've been in my room since last night?
I was going to go back to my room, but I couldn't just leave you, he swooned.
He seemed confused by her reluctance to be near with him. What is wrong with... Lusamine pinched the bridge of her nose and sighed, glaring at the ceiling. Sun, you can't just do that. Were you hiding?
Well, I waited until you were asleep, Sun began, and Lusamine could hear that her questioning what was wrong with him had stung quite a bit. When you woke up, I hid under the bed. He was absurdly, childishly innocent, but the programming they'd inflicted on him had made him almost predatory in nature. Lusamine watched his face. His smile didn't falter, but his eyes were so ravenous it was like looking into a deep, dark maw. He took long, long pauses between blinking. There was something hideous to behold in it all. "Leave me alone," she hissed. Sun did not respond. "Sun, go back to your room and—" "No." "What?" He was supposed to obey her. He was supposed to be hers. Why was he resisting like Gladion and Gladion were able to? Why was he still allowed to choose? "I won't abandon you." There was a charged silence. "Sun, I don't need you to protect me." She felt like she understood now. He was obsessive, protective, jealous. Not traits she had intended for, but traits that she could make to work. She lowered her voice and took the edge off, gentle now. "Sun, did you sleep at all?" "No, Mother." He seemed to be realizing he had done something wrong now, his steady eye contact faltering, flickering. "I'm tired." That was that childish side again. Once Lillie and Gladion were back, once again she wasn't sure whether it was better to get them back sooner or later, she'd asked them about Sun's personality traits. He seemed to convert between this cold, very blunt mindset and a carefree, happy one in seconds. "Please, Sun, take care of yourself. I know you want to look after me, but you're just as important to me as I am to you." Sun was now avoiding looking at her. "Sun." He turned away, head hanging. He seemed heavily disheartened by her words. I'm sorry, Mother. I shouldn't have... Lusamine couldn't help but pity him, knowing it was simply what his possibly malfunctioning head had told him to do. "Sun, go to your room and go to sleep for a while. For me, please." Sun didn't move, his knees shaking. He fell down onto them and screamed, pounding on the ground. "No, no, no!" He clutched his face as he started to cry, Lusamine rushing over to him. "No, no!" "Sun!" She seized him from behind, dragging him to his feet, turning him to face her. "Sun, calm down. You're fine. You're fine." He was so volatile, but once she'd worked him out, she was confident he could be made perfect yet. "Sun," she said. He had calmed down quickly in her arms, his eyes wide with adoration as she held him. "Mother, I'm sorry. I can't be perfect." "No, Sun. I can't believe how perfect you are." That made him smile again. It was so nice to see. "But Sun, you'll need to rest. I know you want me to be with you, but you need to keep yourself healthy." She kissed him on the cheek as he nodded slowly. "Sun, please, I'll come with you and make sure you fall asleep." "Okay, Mother. I love you, Sun. I love you too, Mother." Sun was sound asleep. Lusamine felt an overpowering sense of sadness choking her and had to leave. She left the mansion with a sensation clouding her mind, filling her soul, making her feel faint. "There's something wrong," she admitted to herself. I was wrong. She had gone too far, changed too much. Sun was so dear to her already, but that was too much. She couldn't have him do that, mostly because it reminded her of her own obsessive characteristics, and the last thing she wanted was for him to be like her, in at least some respects. Trying to clear her head, she made her way to where Wick would most likely be, the public conservation deck of paradise. She wanted to talk with her most trusted friend about Sun's issues. Wick was a significantly more caring and thoughtful person than she currently was, which could help if Sun would trust her. She was muttering under her breath as she walked, coming up with ways to help Sun. They'd all take time and effort, which were things Lusamine didn't have. Her mind was occupied with running the foundation, her mental state taking a back seat to running the well-oiled machine. She stumbled suddenly, grasping the handrail to steady herself, attracting some glances. Gritting her teeth, she regained her balance. Her hair drifted into her face and she swept it aside. Imperfection. She put so much effort into her appearance, and yet one tiny mistake could undo it. The paradise was a monument to perfection, a bastration of her family's past triumphs. It had always held some sort of dark secret. Hers was a research into UBs and the creation of type null, perhaps now Sun too. It carried the ideals of her family through the generations, proudly displaying the purity of white, the strength of black, and the esteem of gold in its colors. A true paradise. Wick was where Lusamine had expected her to be, thank Arceus. Her current mood wouldn't have allowed for Wick to be elsewhere. She'd have lost it, given up, and rushed back to Sun to cry or scream or just stare into space. Wick gave a small, polite wave at Lusamine's approach. "Hello, Miss President. Where is Sun?" Lusamine made a pained facial expression and shook her head. I'll explain in a minute. Are you busy?" "Not too busy right now, Miss President. Is Sun healthy? Is he safe?" Lusamine dodged the question again. "Miss President, he's fine. He's sleeping right now." "I see." "Wick, he's fine. I need to talk to you." "Certainly, Miss President." Wick gave a bow of acknowledgement. "What is it?" "Can we talk in private? Maybe down in the employee cafe?" Wick followed Lusamine into one of the elevators, and the President punched in the floor code. "Are you feeling well, Miss President?" Wick could see Lusamine's hand shaking. Aware it was happening, Lusamine closed her hand into a fist and willed it to cease. And it did. "Relatively." No more words were exchanged, an awkward silence congealing as they descended. Upon reaching the floor with the cafe, Wick seemed to remember something, gasping. Oh, yes, Miss President. The emeralds you asked for to import from the Unova have arrived. They're down in the dock storage space. Employees are waiting for you to sign off on it." "Thank you, Wick." Lusamine sounded truly grateful. The cafe was as pristine as anything else in the Foundation, bathed in a soft golden light cast from squares on the ceiling. The seats were organized into comfortable booths. The riches of the Foundation were hard at work here to ensure its employees worked equally hard. It was as much a paradise for people as it was for Pokemon. They sat together in the corner of a large space, the two of them attracting some attention as the highest-ranking members of the Foundation. "What is it, Miss President?" Lusamine couldn't speak. "Miss President?" "I was wrong." "About Sun?" "Yes, he's a little too obsessive." She splayed her fingers on the back table between them. "I woke up this morning to find he had
He had decided to watch over me all night. Wick had no reaction, her poker face strong in the face of the information. All night? He said he didn't sleep a wink. Oh my. Wick delicately covered her surprised expression with her hand. Is he? He's safe. I've put him back to bed, asleep, like I said. Lusamine's eyes were cast in shadows, her fingers still massaging her forehead. I wanted to ask you what I should do. You wanted to ask me? If left to my own devices, I may well hurt him in an attempt to set him straight. Lusamine admitting this shocked Wick. It was enough to convince her that she was at least trying to make a fresh start with Sun, even if everything else about this whole clandestine project was a moral and ethical mess. And I mustn't hurt him. I must show him all the love I can muster. Make him perfect. Wick noticed Lusamine digging her nails into the table. Please, Miss President, relax. I'll help. Lusamine was past going too far to fix things without even realizing it. Wick tried to steer her back into calmer waters before Lusamine crashed and burned Sun the same way she did everything else. Thank you, Wick. What should I do? I don't know. How bad is he? Their discussion lasted 3 cups of coffee and 1 lava cookie. By the end, Wick had found a strange sympathy for Lusamine's situation, despite her intense disgust at her friend's ex. She had driven herself to insanity with the sheer amount of work and encouragement from those trying to take advantage of her, like Feba. Sun seemed healthy, from what Lusamine had said, which was all she was worried about. Sun hadn't deserved what was done to him, but he wasn't in any pain, and he was being treated right. Wick knew it was wrong to help with Sun's conditioning, but couldn't help herself. She had to make sure he was well. If she was told what was being done to him, Wick would have absolutely spoken against it. Now it was done. She was too afraid to try and free Sun or defy Lusamine. Would Lusamine do a similar thing to her if she tried to foil whatever plot she had? Lusamine had lost her composure more and more as the conversation went on. By the end, she was just muttering sentences, either in response to Wick's question or unintelligible statements on Sun's safety. What about when he grows up? He will replace me. That made a lot of sense. If she programmed him right, he'd simply be an extension of her will when she stopped managing the Foundation. At the same time, though, Sun may end up just as demented as her. Not Feba? Lusamine laughed. The laugh became hysterical fit, Lusamine wiping away tears of mirth. Oh, of course not Feba. Maybe you, if he's not ready, but never Feba. He works so hard because he wants a promotion, so I won't promote him. That made sense too, and it made Wick smile nervously. I suppose. Right, Lusamine said, reinvigorated after her short fit of giggles. I'm going to go down to the dock. If you meet me at the mansion later tonight, let yourself in. Lusamine had stood and was already moving. Certainly, Miss President. The talk had cleared Lusamine's head. She felt at peace again. The deep green crystals had been locked into a black collar, similar to the golden one at the top of Lusamine's dress. It wouldn't wrap around the whole of the wearer's neck, ending in a claw-like protrusion that stuck out on either side. Lusamine placed the collar onto Sun's neck, where the emeralds glittered briefly in the light. Sun twitched for a moment.
Lusamine registering the movement as a jolt of pleasure. For a moment, the two stood side by side while they admired each other. "Are you perfect now, Sun?" Sun couldn't speak. There was too much emotion in the moment for him. His breath came in little gasps. He mouthed the word "wow," touching the collar lightly. He reached out to his mother's hand. Lusamine didn't take it. "Are you?" "Yes," he said. "I'm beautiful." "You are." Now she linked her fingers with his, feeling his warm skin between her cold digits. "Sun, my perfect boy." Sun had a bright, cheerful smile. They continued to observe their reflections. Lusamine ate up the sight of Sun's smiling face, consumed in the look of desire on hers. Lusamine pulled him around to face her at last, dragging him away from the mirror. She lifted him up with little difficulty. She carried him across the room, laughing along with him before setting him down on the bed and lying over him. She took his arms and held them over his head, kissing him deeply. He squirmed excitedly beneath her, trying to break free of her grip to hold her with the same sort of passion. Her hair fell over his body, cocooning him. Her lips left his. He felt empty. Mother? "Son, we shouldn't interact like that." Lusamine had retreated off of him entirely, sitting on the edge of the bed. There was a beautiful, elegant curve to her posture that Sun had a primal desire to break and lie her back down flat again. She looked pale, afraid. "We mustn't." Sun didn't want to hear it. He put his arms around her slim neck and kissed her shoulder. She made a noise of pleasure, a sort of desperate mewing. He felt confident. He'd show her it was all right, that he loved her, perhaps more than a son should. He would rip anyone who tried to hurt her limb from limb. "No," she gasped. "No, Sun." Sun relented. He wouldn't ignore an order from her, not anymore. He was desperate to touch her, feel her, know her as he did himself. Discipline stayed his hands. Lusamine's eyes were firmly shut. She sipped on air, filling her lungs, make her chest swell and fall. She could not give in to any of her desires. "Son, we can't do that." The danger that she was trying to keep in check was that horrifying predatory side. Shaking, she tried to control herself. "We can't. I'm sorry." In the back of her mind, the black whispers reached out to convince her. "He is just as eager as you. You made him do this. He isn't yours." She stuffed them all under iron will. "Stay away from Sun," she said to herself. "Stay away, or we will be at war." Sun sat opposite her on the side of the bed, a rare occasion where he wasn't fawning over her. He was staring at his white shoes. There was an ocean of guilt, a tide rising in his gut. He needed to think. It was as if he was truly attracted to her, and that made him sick. That wasn't right. Her warnings to herself were lost to him as he remained deep in thought. "I love you more than anything else," his mother assured, bringing him back to the moment. "But, Son, I could hurt you if we went too far." Something in Sun's head pinged painfully, and he twitched. Lusamine noticed. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, Mother." The pain was fleeting. "Are you sure?" Lusamine instantly made the connection. Sun's mind was delicate.
and perhaps there were some gaps in the mental conversion they'd performed. Sun shook his head. It just hurt, like I couldn't think. Lie down, Sun. Sun obliged and kicked off his shoes before twisting to lie back on the bed on the soft white sheets. He pushed his hand onto his forehead. Hurts. He felt her touch relieve the pressure he was applying and brushed her thumb over his brow. Son, you're my perfect boy. Thank you, Mother. So that was chapter 8. I'm pretty sure this is the chapter that I only just read the last time I was reading this. So from this chapter onwards, I have zero clue what's going to happen, except that it's going to be deliciously bad. I'm actually really excited to read chapter 9. I don't know, I just feel like something's gonna happen and it's gonna be good. But I hope you guys enjoyed. So yeah,